Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Fantastic Four issue number 240, cover dated March 1982. The cover is by John Byrne, inked by Terry Austin, but a question I had when I was looking at this cover initially before making the video was that this doesn't really, to me, look like John Byrne design for the cover. I felt something was off. I didn't think that he would draw a cover where we're looking at the backs of the main characters, and I looked it up. I did a spot of research and I discovered indeed that the design is not Byrne's. What he's working from is a sketch by Ed Hannigan, and this is his worked out version of that sketch. So what I don't yet know is whether editorial was involved in that or what the full story is, but the design here is not by Byrne. The pencils are, and the inks are by Terry Austin. So the cover caption is Exodus. This is Attilan here, and obviously we have Black Bolt using his power somehow to levitate Attilan from its current home in the Himalayas. But where is it going to? Well, we also have here, in addition on the cover, a caption stating that the return of Medusa and the birth of Quicksilver and Crystal's child will be told in this issue. So let's open this one up to the splash page. Splash page is pretty good. We have the cover caption now as our title for the story, Exodus. There are 22 pages of story and art in this issue. Creator credits are down here in the bottom corner. John Byrne, words and pictures, so that's script, pencils and inks. Jim Novak on letters, and Glynis Wine on colors. So no dialogue, no narrative captions on this splash page. I think that works well. It's Quicksilver. He's racing through New York City. Let's turn the page and get right into the story. So we see there that he, again, as I was saying, he's racing through New York City. We see him zigzagging through traffic there. Suddenly he sees it. The pain and anguish of 20,000 miles sluices from him. His goal is almost achieved. Slackening his pace not the slightest, he lances up the sheer face of the far-famed Baxter Building. So this is Quicksilver running up the face of the Baxter Building, while inside we've got the Thing. And what's he up to? He's got a bunch of wrapped presents in his arms. This comic came out on sale before Christmas of 1981. It came out mid-December, so there's a little Christmas reference here. The Thing is thinking to himself, I give up. If Franklin finds his Christmas presents after I've stashed them here, I'm going to let him keep them. It just gets harder and harder to hide stuff from that kid. It's almost like he knows what and he was about to say thinking, or say to himself thinking, and that's because Byrne is seeding and has been seeding since the beginning of his run as writer-artist on the title. A little mystery about Franklin Richards and his inchoate but developing powers, unbeknownst to his parents and the other members of the Fantastic Four. So the Thing finds himself facing a shadowy figure. The intruder alert alarm slices through the evening silence. For a moment, these sole occupants of the vast top floor hangar deck stand as if transfixed. So of course this is Quicksilver in silhouette here. He starts bouncing off the walls, ricocheting his body from the walls. The intruder builds up enough speed to at last hurl himself against his target with less than satisfactory results. So the Thing, of course, super strong, has a degree of armor by dint of his rocky hide. And then we see him pull out this piece of equipment and smash it over where he thinks Quicksilver is. But of course, Quicksilver runs free. You can just see him streaking away from the machinery there. But at this point, I want to criticize Byrne's script here in respect of this panel. So we can see the Thing taking that chunk of machinery, and then we see in the next panel that he slams it, tries to aim at Quicksilver. But we have a narrative caption that, as far as I'm concerned, is superfluous. Instinctively, the thing reaches out, mighty muscles tearing at reinforced steel as if it were but cardboard. We don't need that caption. And also here, it's clobbering time, he yells, misses Quicksilver, but as fast as he is, the thing moves as slowly as if mired in molasses to the eyes of his adversary. We don't need that either. So a criticism that Byrne had of working with Claremont on Uncanny X-Men was that Byrne would hand in pages, and he judged that there were times when Claremont would narrate in his narrative captions exactly what Byrne had drawn, and Byrne's criticism was, why say what can be seen by the reader in the art as he's drawn it? It's superfluous. So Byrne is right in respect of that kind of criticism when it comes to the comics medium, but it also applies equally to himself here when he's overriding some of these pages. Now, in later pages in the issue, especially towards the end, the narrative captions work well and complement the art, but here, no. Here we have superfluous narration where none is needed, in my evaluation, my judgment. So then, there are others in the building, the Human Torch and Frankie Ray. She doesn't have a code name. And the Torch here sees the streaking figure. His speed is incredible. The way he moves almost reminds me of, but it can't be him. He's a world away in Tibet. So he is thinking of Quicksilver, but he's not expecting Quicksilver to be in New York. Never mind the Baxter Building. Frankie lashes out with a bolt of flame. Despite the Human Torch's protests, Frankie, for heaven's sake, he says, you could have killed him. And she responds, so, he's one of the bad guys, isn't he? And then in the narrative caption here, this is interesting, Johnny Storm feels a cold fist close about his heart at Frankie Ray's words, but he has no time to ponder their implications. So again, this is interesting, seeding maybe some doubts about whether Frankie is going to be an entirely ethical member of the Fantastic Four, and Johnny having some intuitions about that and feeling fear in respect of how it is that she might conduct herself in the future. I do like Byrne's drawing here of the two fiery figures flying, in particular the poses he comes up with for Frankie Ray, in particular this one in this panel. I think it's really well done. And then the Thing continues to try to catch the intruder as he sees it, and Sue happens upon the scene. She says, whoever that man is, his speed makes all of our tactics useless, all but one. A single thought, as instinctive to her as the drawing of a breath, and unseen energies flow from the invisible girl, and a barrier forms before the mysterious guest, a barrier transparent as air and solid as stone. But before the bone-crushing impact occurs, Reed intervenes. The elastic body of Mr. Fantastic shapes itself into a cushion before the invisible force field, and as the lights snap on, it's all revealed that the stopped runner, the racer, is Quicksilver. And so they recognize that now. Let's continue with the story. Quicksilver says, yes, Quicksilver, but who are you, monster? How do you know my name? And the Thing replies, boy, for the world's fastest man, you can be real slow on the uptake. Don't you recognize the ever-loving Thing? So Quicksilver is baffled at the Thing's changed appearance. But he's, should he be so baffled? I mean, who else is this going to be? He's a little less geometric in respect of his rockiness, but otherwise he looks and acts like the Thing. So this is all a bit contrived, really, this kind of misrecognition of characters. So the Thing explains about the recent transformation. There's an introduction there by the Human Torch of Frankie Ray, and she says, my pleasure, it's an honor to meet a former X-Man. And Quicksilver corrects her. Avenger, my dear, my dealings with the X-Men were less than friendly. So, of course, Quicksilver, not only a former member of the Avengers, but also of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Enough introductions, says Johnny. Let me get you a drink and you can tell us why you're so far from home. So here we have a little moment between Sue and Reed, where Sue sees that there's something troubling Reed. He says, she asks him, is it about Quicksilver? No, Sue, he replies, it's Ben. Even though he knows he's now permanently the Thing, he shows no distress over it. So again, another kind of subplot there in respect of the Thing's acceptance of the fact that subsequent to Reed's failed attempt to undo the effects of the cosmic rays, that he's now permanently stuck as this version of the Thing. So then there is an opportunity after Quicksilver has had his drink to explain why he has come to the Baxter building. He says here, my reason for being here is the most serious imaginable. When I left the great refuge of the Inhumans, we were locked in a most terrible conflict, but even that must pale to insignificance. Atalan, the hidden land, is dying. So here he explains everything that's happened to this point, where he talks about how Medusa and Crystal were out picking these rare flowers, how without warning Medusa was abducted in a burst of black light, how Black Bolt bore everything so well, the news of his beloved's abduction, how within a week the hidden land was under attack, skyships in legion raining black death from above. From a single prisoner taken in battle, we learned our attackers, says Quicksilver, were power-hungry humans who called themselves the Enclave. And we learned they had an ally in Atalan, a most foul viper at our very bosom, Maximus, rightly called the Mad, brother of Black Bolt. And Quicksilver continues, tragedy followed hard upon tragedy in the days to come. As the war went on, the Inhumans began to lose ground, not to the Enclave, but to a mysterious malady which fell them by the hundreds. So we can see them weakening there. And Quicksilver says, when I left the hidden land a week ago, over 50 of the Inhumans were dead of the plague. I alone of all in Atalan was unaffected, perhaps because I am a mutant, not an Inhuman. But my beloved Crystal also lies near death, and should she perish, I shall lose not only her, but our unborn child as well. So that catches Johnny's attention, because once upon a time he and Crystal were lovers, and so he grabs Quicksilver there a little too forcefully. You idiot, he yells. If the Inhumans are in trouble, why did you come on foot? You could have been here in an instant with Lockjaw's teleporting power. And that's a good question. So why did Quicksilver come on foot? Why not some other mode of transport? Or at the very least by teleportation? Unhand me, human, he declares. Crystal's loyal pet would not leave her side until sure you would come to our aid. But Reed says what readers must be thinking. That goes without saying, Quicksilver. The Inhumans are our friends. We would never turn our backs on them. So Quicksilver sends a signal and Lockjaw arrives. He's opened a dimensional portal from the Himalayas. The dour countenance of this strangest of Inhumans seems sadder than ever. Quicksilver feels his heart sink, but stifles such emotion with action. So they're all gathering around Lockjaw to be teleported to the Himalayas, but Reed says to Frankie that she should stay because her training isn't complete enough to face what may lie ahead. So she's left alone there in the Baxter building, and she's wondering to herself, like, where's the pomp and circumstance, the cosmic grandeur of being with the Fantastic Four, the fun? Franklin there is tucked up in bed with Herbie the robot, keeping an eye on him, and Frankie decides to call her roommate and have a chat with her. So let's move on to the main action, a world away. So they arrive in the ruins of Atalan after the war with the Enclave, and it's silent. Everybody's looking around and concerned. Sue hears something coming, and it turns out to be Medusa. So she's back. "Welcome, Quicksilver," she says. "It's good to see you again after so long." And Gorgon says, "Then you've not failed us, Swift One. It's been too long since these eyes have beheld the Fantastic Four." And Quicksilver says, "These are but words, they fill the air and nothing more. What has happened here? The war, the plague, Medusa. How fares my wife, your sister?" So Medusa says, "Crystal's little changed from when last you saw her, Pietro. As to the war, it is ended with victory for Atalan." And Gorgon says, "Aye, thanks to Maximus." So that's a big surprise for Quicksilver there. So Medusa explains, "Gorgon speaks true, my brother. We were near defeat, failing fast at the hands of the Enclave. The plague had robbed us of our strength and powers. Of all in Atalan, only 4 remained strong enough to fight. Black Bolt, Gorgon, myself, still a prisoner of the Enclave, and him who we named Mad," so Maximus then. "The Enclave's victory seemed easily within their grasp," she says. "Their leader had even ordered my execution as a final gesture of their contempt. Then salvation came from a most unexpected quarter. Maximus sacrificed himself to destroy our foes." And Gorgon concludes, "Thus was victory snatched from the very jaws of ravenous defeat. The name of Maximus shall be spoken with honour from this day forward. But come, Black Bolt awaits." So Reed asks after Quicksilver, but Quicksilver wants to see his wife, and then they see Black Bolt. Through the sepulchral halls, the Fantastic Four follow their Inhuman friends until, they see Black Bolt here for long minutes. The electrons dance around Black Bolt's antennae. Then at last he seems for the first time to notice he's no longer alone. Solemnly, he approaches the Outlander, known as Mr. Fantastic. He greets him in silence, as is ever his burden, and for a moment the two men face each other, not as king and commoner, but as equals. Reed Richards has the momentary sensation that the monarch of the Inhumans has been waiting for his arrival. There is a feeling that the torch is being passed. Then, so he collapses onto the ground, but he's not dead. And Reed infers, it's incredible, he's obviously been using his own energy to maintain the life force of all the Inhumans. So that's what he's been doing there. So no further words are needed. Like a well-oiled machine, human and inhuman alike spring into action. The silent hallways echo to the thunder of their running feet. As the thing scoops up the fallen king and Gorgon leads the way through chambers and terraces that once rang with happy voices, they race to what had been the great hall of Atalan, now a makeshift hospital for thousands of dying Inhumans. So that's here, where they're going. And the thing puts him on this hospital bed, and Medusa gives him a kiss, and then Reed goes into action using his scientific mind to assess and diagnose what the issue is. He says, "I'm afraid it's as I guessed it might be when Quicksilver said he was unaffected. This is the same malady which once struck Crystal and forced her to leave the Fantastic Four and return to Atalan years ago." And that's a reference all the way back, even though there's no editorial note here, to issue 105 of the Fantastic Four. So that's one of Byrne's strategies, always linking back to earlier continuity. So you get a great consistency in Byrne's run with the continuity of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and in the case of issue 105, it was drawn by John Romita Sr. So, Reed has synthesized a temporary antidote. Note, it's only temporary. And he says, "Give it to the weakest of the stricken and the royal family." So that's done. People are well again, but it's only a temporary measure, a stopgap, says Reed. When Crystal was first stricken, it was because her body had no immunity to the pollutants in the air beyond the Himalayas. So that's the root problem here. And Reed says, but there is no longer anywhere on Earth where the air is truly clean. The antidote I have created can stave off the effects of your steadily more contaminated air, but to constantly pump chemicals into your bodies. Black Bolt gets it. He nods. Karnak here says then the obvious solution is that the Great Refuge must be moved to some other place where the air is fresh and clean. Reed says, I'm afraid you're missing the point, Karnak. There's nowhere to go, even were such a move possible, but it is possible. And Medusa explains, years ago, fearing discovery by the outside world, Black Bolt arranged for the island of Asalan to be relocated here in Tibet. So that was a story told in What If, issue number 30. It was a colossal feat, but accomplished. So that intrigues the thing. Son of a gun. That beats Stretcho here, even on a good day. Too bad you got that kind of technology to back you up, but still nowhere on Earth to go. And then Reed has a brainwave. Nowhere on Earth? Ben, that's it. That's the answer. It would mean grave risk and doubtless great hardships, but there is a place. And so there in the background is the pock-marked full moon, and that's where they're going to go. So let's turn the page. And this is where the narrative captions really do come in useful. Quickly, the vast resources of the hidden land are turned to the mammoth task. In the massive power plants, Mr. Fantastic and Black Bolt oversee the conversion of giant generators into anti-gravity motors. So, like Byrne has drawn some action here of the Inhumans, the Human Torch, but we wouldn't know what was going on except for this narrative caption. So that is where it is useful. Similarly here, we need the captions to tell us what's going on with the Thing and Sue. While Susan Richards assists former astronaut Ben Grimm in the charting of a nigh unbelievable course, the Thing takes quickly to the job. It has been too long since he was called upon to use his mind rather than his muscle. And on the outskirts of Atalan, Gorgon and Karnak scout the flawless surface of the almost indestructible plasteel which bonds the city in place. So Karnak, of course, his power is to find the weak spot in any physical object or even system, and he finds it and strikes with unfortunately minimal effect. So Gorgon then strikes the precise spot indicated by Karnak. Strike there, cousin, let your thunderous hoof complete what I've begun. The echoes of the mighty blow resound through the misty valleys, and the job is done. So this crack, this flaw runs right around the perimeter of the city. Meanwhile, in almost total darkness, the king of the Inhumans moves slowly. He is far below the bustle of Asalan in caverns hewn from the very living rock. This is the midnight realm of the Alpha Primitives, subhuman workers of the Great Refuge. Black Bolt looks upon these lowest of his subjects and senses the fear and hatred his presence stirs in them. Once, not long ago, the Inhumans freed their mindless drones. It was a noble experiment and a failure. So why could these slaves not be freed? Let's turn the page. Before the Inhumans realized their mistake, many hundreds of the Alphas died of illness or starvation, unable to fend for themselves in their subterranean world. When the royal family at last ventured again into the catacombs, it was almost too late. The Alphas had paid the price for misguided altruism. Now Black Bolt faces their hordes alone and unafraid. At length, even the Primitives recognize the purpose of his nobility and purpose. The power of his nobility and purpose. When he points them to the passages leading to the surface, they go. They grumble wordlessly in their less than human voices, but they go. So Black Bolt commands them. They move. A lot of work here with the figures, these small figures drawn by Byrne. It's impressive. Like all of the detail there, if you look at that in high definition, a lot of work on the page. Black Bolt listens as the murmur of their passing fades. Silence rolls heavily across him. He listens, hearing the thump of his own heartbeat grow loud in the darkness. He counts 998, 999, 1000 pulses. All should be in readiness above. And then Black Bolt speaks. So this is always a rare event in Marvel Comics when Black Bolt speaks, because his voice is so powerful. A sonic shockwave lashes out, smashing the solid rock before it is before it, as though it were a child's toy of sand and water, and Atalan breaks free. So there it is. It is rising up above the Himalaya mountains. Inch by inch it lifts from the rocky decline scooped out for it so long ago by Black Bolt and some very special friends. Gleaming in the bright Himalayan dawn, the great refuge shows little sign of the devastation it has suffered, and deep within that now empty hollow, Black Bolt surveys the former home of his people. As he stands in once more characteristic silence, the hiss of escaping natural gas catches his ear. He seems for a moment to pause in contemplation, then straight and true as a laser, the electron stream flashes from his antennae, gouging the rock below the vent. 7 swift, sure strokes, and then Black Bolt spreads his glider wings and rises above Atalan. A last blast of energy ignites the gas. The flame thus created will burn for 1,000 years or more, and on the rock beneath it, a single word in the graceful script of his alien Cree forefathers, and here we go, Maximus. So it's a tribute to his apparently dead brother who sacrificed himself in order to save Atalan from the Enclave. And let's continue. So Atalan is aloft, being piloted by Ben Grimm, drifting across the world, its course south and west as the Earth turns. And all the while it rises towards airless space, at the uppermost edge of which hangs the space satellite of S.H.I.E.L.D. So Nick Fury happens to be aboard the satellite, and one of the agents says there's something big moving across the Indian subcontinent, Colonel, and moving fast. Dum Dugan is there as well. It's already over Africa. And as Atalan drifts across the dark continent, the agent at the control says, "Holy cow, Colonel, my energy readings just shot right off the scale. Whatever that thing is, it just passed over a power pocket strong enough to vaporize the whole hemisphere." And Fury asks, "You're sure it ain't the object itself?" "Negative, Colonel. Something ground-based." So there's something there in the middle of Africa, and that's a mystery for another issue, specifically the next issue of Fantastic Four. Colonel Fury barks out some orders. "This is the commander. All agents are at alert. This is not a drill." But Atalan has already broken free of Earth's atmosphere. With Ben Grimm at the makeshift helm, Atalan is fast leaving behind the troubles of our small planet. And of the thousands of Inhumans staring out through the vacuum-sealed windows, is there even one who sheds a tear for the lost Earth and its memories? So here it is coming up on the destination, which is, of course, the blue area of the moon. And the blue area of the moon, its origin, or its first appearance in comics, is indeed an issue of Fantastic Four, issue number 13. And Atalan is piloted by Ben right over the ruins of the long dead city below them. And who's watching there as well, except for Uatu, because he has residence on the moon too, where he keeps an eye on the major events on Earth. Some distance away, unheeding of the harsh airless environment of the moon's surface, strange eyes observe Atalan's progress. He is Uatu, called the Watcher, and for countless centuries he's dwelt alone here in the blue area. Now he will have neighbours, so, he's got no say in that. And the city lands on the ruins below, crumbling into dust, the brittle ruins beneath it, and burying for all time the fateful spot upon which a young woman from Earth once died to save the universe. So a reference to Jean Grey committing suicide in the blue area of the moon, the seminal Uncanny X-Men, issue 137 by Claremont and Byrne. So of course he's not going to forget that. The great refuge has landed. And here we get a full page of the Inhumans emerging into the breathable blue area, or the blue area of the moon with breathable air and unpolluted air. At that, the Inhumans come forth to greet their new world. It's a great page there by Byrne. And whoops, let's get to the final page. What about Quicksilver? Where was he in the middle of all of this? Well, he was pacing with worry outside the delivery room for Crystal and his unborn child. And look who was involved in the delivery, except for Reed Richards. So I didn't know that he was a qualified obstetrician. But in any case, he has either overseen or assisted in the birth of Quicksilver's child. And it's revealed that he has a daughter. See for yourself, Dad, says Reed. And Sue asks, concerned about the baby's health, the baby, is it? There was some difficulty with the birth, he says, but Crystal came through like a real trooper, and the little girl is completely and totally normal. So that's interesting. The Thing asks, saying that ain't saying much, stretch around these parts. That could mean the kid's got two heads. But Reed explains, no, Ben, you misunderstand. I ran some very comprehensive tests as the child was being born. In some inexplicable way, the mutant and inhuman genes have cancelled each other out. I don't know how Pietro will take to the idea when he finds out, but it somehow seems fitting that the first child born on the moon should be so human. And then the narrating voice says amen to that. But Quicksilver won't take well to it, because Quicksilver draws a rather haughty distinction as part of his characterization between Homo sapiens and Homo superior. So this is going to be a point of tension, and ultimately in far down the line of guilt on Quicksilver's part for the attitude he took towards his human daughter. So interesting, Byrne setting up these story possibilities for the future in this issue regarding the Thing and his acceptance of his permanently being in this rocky form, as well as the building mystery with Franklin Richards and his powers, and now this business of the Inhumans moving to the blue area of the moon. Lots going on in the title, and of course Frankie Ray and her maybe over eager use of her powers, and her over easy assumption that anyone in the Baxter building would be a villain. Next issue, an old friend returns, plus a bizarre new foe, as the fabulous Fantastic Four head for Darkest Africa. So that power flare that was observed by the SHIELD technician is going to be explored in the next issue. In a tale entitled Render Unto Caesar. You'll be real sorry if you miss it. So Render Unto Caesar. So, that would have readers conjecturing, what's this all about? Why a reference to ancient Rome? And could there be a hidden ancient Roman colony in Darkest Africa? Well, we'll find out in the next issue. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Fantastic Four, issue number 240. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.